I have a question for you guys. If all cats are dogs and some dogs are mice, which of the following options is true? All cats are mice, all dogs are mice, some cats are mice, some dogs are cats, or some mice are cats. The answer? Some dogs are cats. Well, how do we reach this conclusion? There's an overlapping between dogs and mice. However, there is no direct information about the relationship between cats and mice. Therefore, the only valid conclusion we can draw is that there is a possibility that some cats are mice. Now, why am I bringing this up? This question ties into Russia and their use of false equivalencies and logical fallacies. If we were to use the Kremlin's logic on that same question, the answer would be that all cats are mice. And this is what we would call a false equivalency. False equivalencies are often used in Russian propaganda to deceive the viewer or reader into believing a factually incorrect point based on deception and psychological persuasion, rather than using reasoning and factual examination. False equivalencies they tend to exaggerate correlation and avoid essential distinction. A perfect example of this false equivalency in action is this video here. In this video, we see Ukrainians in the capital city of Kyiv partying on a Friday or Saturday evening at a bar. Now, a logical person would understand that this is just people trying to enjoy their lives on a weekend while they still can, because when you're in a war zone, you never know when the next minute is going to be your last. So you try to enjoy life as you can and not just be miserable the whole time. But the Russian propaganda logic on this point goes as follows. All of the people in this video are Ukrainian. All of the people in this video are partying. Therefore, every Ukrainian must be partying. That means that Ukraine does not need our help and there is no war. There's the false equivalency. False equivalencies are very common use of a little thing called logical fallacy. Logical fallacies are deceptive or false arguments that may seem stronger than they actually are due to psychological persuasion, but they're very easily proven wrong with reasoning and basic further examination. These mistakes in reasoning typically consist of an argument and a premise that does not support the conclusion. There are two types of logical fallacies: formal and informal. Formal fallacies are arguments that have invalid structure, form, or context errors. Informal fallacies are arguments that have irrelevant or incorrect premises. Russian propaganda talking points often mix both of these into the same argument. So half will be informal and half will be formal, and they'll still both come to the same conclusion somehow. Now, what are some other forms of logical fallacies that are often used in Russian propaganda? I'll give you two examples. Two of the main examples are straw man fallacies and appeal to authority fallacies. Straw man fallacies occur when your opponent oversimplifies or misrepresents your argument and sets up a straw man to make it easier to attack or refute your argument. Instead of fully addressing your actual argument, the speaker will rely on this fallacy present as a superficial summary. Instead of fully addressing your actual argument, the speakers relying on this fallacy present a superficially similar, but ultimately not really the same version of your real stance, helping them with creating the illusion of how easily they're defeating you. Here's an example of that. If I were to say, quote, Ukraine is pushing back the Russians across the front line, end quote. The straw man argument often used by Russian supporters is something to the effect of, quote, so what you're saying is Ukraine doesn't need our help and we should stop giving them weapons and money. Thanks for proving that we shouldn't be supporting Ukraine. There's your perfect example right there. You've got a straw man argument where someone is taking what you're saying out of context and they're intentionally conflating what you're saying. Now, on to appeal of authority fallacies. While appeals to authority are by no means always fallacious, they can quickly become dangerous when you rely too heavily on the opinion and not on the facts presented of a single person, especially if that person is attempting to validate something outside of their expertise. Getting an authority figure to back your proposition can be a very powerful addition to any existing argument, but it can't really be the pillar of what your entire argument relies on. Just because someone in a position of power believes something is true doesn't really make it true. A perfect example of this would be Russian supporters constantly referring to Colonel McGregor and his interview with Tucker Carlson. Colonel McGregor is a retired United States Army officer that is no stranger to the battlefield by any means or to the military. That being said, he retired in 2004. A lot has changed in the world and the world of warfare since 2004. Colonel McGregor was an instrumental part of the U.S. success in the Middle East, but to counter that, he's not stayed up to date on anything militarily since then with regards to advancements in technology, development of strategies and doctrine, or apparently even developing geopolitical conflicts. He's very out of date on all of that. Colonel McGregor can't even properly identify newer military equipment and often mistakes them for older pieces of equipment. Case in point, Colonel McGregor saw a picture of a Mexican cartel member carrying a training AT-4. You can tell it's a training AT-4 rocket launcher based on the yellow band on it. This photo was shown in an article claiming that Ukrainian soldiers were selling modern Javelin anti-tank missiles to Mexican drug cartels. He identified the launcher in the photo as a Javelin and immediately took the article as fact without doing any verification himself. Colonel McGregor also doesn't even know the difference between the originally fielded versions of the M1 Abrams and the current fielded versions of the M1 Abrams that the U.S. military uses today. He says they look the same, therefore they are the same. He essentially makes a comparison that an iPhone 10 and an iPhone 14 are the exact same thing, fully with capabilities, technology included, just because they look the same. They have the same look, but their technology and capabilities are vastly different. Conor McGregor at one point even goes on a 10-minute rant about AI technology and how it will not help the military because he doesn't understand how AI works. He openly admits that he doesn't know how it works, but claims that it cannot help, despite the fact that AI is already being integrated and assisting with multiple technologies within the U.S. military's arsenal. So to conclude, these are just a few examples of types of Russian propaganda, how they operate, why they're effective, and some examples of their use. I hope you guys all learned something from this video. I will be turning this into a series going forward and going over different types of Russian propaganda. The next video in this series will be about Russian deceptive imagery persuasion. Please let me know what you guys think, and if you guys have any feedback for me, thank you and have a great day. As always, remember to trust but verify.